If you want to design a book cover yourself but don't want to use Photoshop because it's expensive, then this video is for you. Today I'm doing a tutorial where we design a book cover completely for free using Canva. In this video, besides this tutorial, we'll also be discussing the pros and cons to using Canva and throwing in a couple of cover design tips along the way. Hello everyone, my name is Mandy Lynn. I'm an author, book cover designer, and the creator of the Book Launch Planner series, and I make weekly videos on the business of being an author. If that sounds good to you, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon so you never miss a new upload. So for those of you who don't know, I actually have a book cover design courses, but those book cover design courses cover specifically how to design a book cover in Photoshop. So I have 3 different courses on book cover design. The first is a course on Photoshop where I just teach you the basics of Photoshop. The second is a course on typography, specifically typography when you're using Photoshop. And the final course is a more advanced Photoshop course where I go into the specifics of designing book covers in Photoshop and doing more advanced photo manipulation. So if you're interested in that, I will leave it linked down below. You can either buy the courses separately to whatever meets your need, or you can buy it as a 3-course bundle. However, we are here today to talk about Canva because Canva can be a free alternative to Photoshop. It doesn't have nearly the capabilities that Photoshop has, but if you're someone who needs a more simple cover, then it's a great resource. So speaking of which, let's go into the pros and cons of Canva before we start designing our cover in Canva. So the first pro is that Canva is easy and accessible. So when I say easy, it's pretty intuitive. You don't typically need a tutorial to figure out how to use Canva, although we are doing a tutorial today. And it's accessible in terms of the fact that it is free. Now there is a paid version of Canva. I used to have the paid version of Canva. I temporarily kind of paused my subscription because I went on maternity leave and I haven't reactivated it yet, so I thought now would be the perfect time to give you guys a tutorial for cover design without having to pay for Canva. So I only have access to whatever you can use when it's the free version of Canva. Now with that said, with it being free, we have a lot of limitations. Now speaking of which, that means that another pro to Canva is that it is in fact free or at least cheaper than other softwares. So like I said, there's a paid version as well, but at the end of the day it does tend to be much cheaper than Photoshop. It depends on how you use Photoshop. Photoshop is a subscription service, or you can buy it outright, but I recommend using the subscription because it's a bit more advanced in terms of what you're able to do, and you'll always have the most updated software when you do the subscription. Now the plus side to the Photoshop subscription is that you can turn it off at any time, and then you only pay for it when you absolutely need it. And Canva, you can say the same thing because it is also a subscription that you can turn off whenever you don't need it. So let's talk about the cons of using Canva. The first con that I already mentioned quickly is that it is limited. In terms of a graphic design software, it is super basic. It allows you to add text, you can crop, you can do some editing to the colorings, you can add different elements in, but the more you're aware of what Photoshop can do, the more you're aware of what Canva cannot do. Photoshop allows you to make selections, and basically that means if you have someone in a photo and you just want that person in that photo, you can select that person, remove the rest of the background. Now I believe Canva, if you pay for it, can kind of do this, but in my opinion it's not nearly as good as if you use Photoshop. In Photoshop you just have endless possibilities. Photoshop is more robust, and you pay for that robustness when you purchase it, and same goes for Canva. So basically when it comes to editing softwares, you get what you pay for. And lastly, the con to Canva is that I feel like it's really easy to make something that isn't unique in Canva. And I say this because Canva has a lot of templates, and I feel like the templates are good for inspiration, but it can be really easy to become a lazy designer when you're using Canva. Because as you'll see as we go into the tutorial, when you go into Canva and you go to design a book cover, there's all these other book covers in there, And frankly, you could take one of the book covers in Canva, just change the title and the author name and call it a day. And it can look great, but that also means that someone else has potentially done the same exact thing. So there's these really beautiful cover templates in Canva, but you don't want to just use one of their templates. You want to really change it and make your book unique and stand out. If you're an author who's used Canva to design your book covers before, and let me know in the comments down below. I would love to hear what your experience was like and if you enjoyed it and would continue to use Canva as your cover design software. Otherwise, let's jump on into the tutorial. Alright, so here we are on my Canva account, and to start your book cover design, it's actually super simple. So you see this search up here, we're just going to put in book cover, and we're set to templates right now. And we're just going to go to click on the book cover example. And once we do that, these are all the book cover templates that I was telling you about. So as you can see, some of these look really cool. Now I will say, the thing that also sets Canva apart from Photoshop is that Photoshop, you're able to do really cool things with the text, whereas Canva, you can't really do that. So, like, one thing here, this cover here, the hide and seek, it looks really cool, but the text is very flat and plain. In Photoshop, you'd be able to add a metal effect that you can't do on Canva. So, as you can see, as we go through all the different text, you'll notice that a lot of this text is flat. And just to give you guys an idea of what I'm talking about, here we are. This is one of the book covers that I designed in my book cover design course. And see how this text looks metal and it has a fun metal effect. If you really zoom in, you can really appreciate it more. That's what I'm talking about, where it's almost 3D looking. It looks embossed. And over here, none of these covers have that embossed metal effect. So that's just one thing I wanted to point out. Now, you can either start with a blank slate and work from there, or you can find a cover that you like and just edit the cover. But in this case, I only want to edit a free cover. A lot of these are made and you have to use the paid version of Canva, and you can tell when you see this little crown in the corner or the dollar sign in the corner, that means they either use a paid stock photo or they use the Canva Pro account. So in order to do a cover for free and only see free examples, there's filters up here, and we're gonna filter it to be only free covers. And then we can also do style or theme, and there's a few other options as well. But basically, we're gonna find one that we like. I think we're gonna go with this one. Now, the fun part about when you choose an existing one is that you can see how it was created. Also note that when you click on a cover like I just did, you can see more like this. We see more examples of other covers that are kind of similar. So if you want to branch off even more, you can spend a lot of time going through their different cover templates. But you can also see who designed the template as well. So let's go ahead and hit customize this template. So that'll open it up for us on Photoshop, and we'll see what elements are made up. We have the text for the title of the book. We have the author name, this butterfly, which we can see is, it looks like it's transparent, but its transparency actually is set to 100, so that's interesting. And then we have this photo down here. Now this is the thing where if you wanted to swap out the person's face, like say this is a female and you wanted it to be a male instead, you can find another image and plop it in here. But this is where it gets tricky with Canva, because in Canva, as far as I'm aware, I'm not able to erase portions of the photo like I would in Photoshop. So this essentially was just uploaded like this. And that's great, but if you need to customize things really specifically, and like I said, you want to customize it so it maybe, you know, you drew inspiration from the template, but you don't want to just use this outright as a template, because otherwise anyone could do the same exact thing. So that's where this becomes hard to customize things in Canva, because you wouldn't be able to create this cool transparent effect like you would in Photoshop. So I just wanted to show you guys how you can kind of see how things break down. Essentially, I'm going to restart us from scratch here. We're going to delete a couple things and just leave this background here. And we're going to design a cool thriller cover because I feel like it would be really hard to design a fantasy cover in Canva because fantasy book covers just require a lot. Like if you look at this fantasy cover, we can see over in the right hand corner, there's a lot of layers going on, and that's just because that's what it takes to design a cover, especially a fantasy cover. Canva does have layers, but you can't view them the same way you can on Photoshop. Instead, if you add different elements, like if I add this square in, and then I add another square in, and we'll make it a different color just so it's easy to see. Oopsies. There we go. If I click on this square here and I want to bring it forward in front of this other square, I can right click and you see the layer panel, and it's just very different. We can click bring forward. Now if we do the same thing, right click and then layer, you can also hit show layers. And this is about as similar as it gets to Photoshop. You can see where we can see our different layers. In the same way, if we go over to Photoshop, we can see our different layers. Now, if you're not familiar with layers, I don't really have time to explain that in this video. I do explain it in my book cover design course, but for the sake of clarity, I'm not going to worry about it today. But if you are familiar with layers, that is a way that you can make this a little more advanced and more like Photoshop if you're someone who is familiar with Photoshop and the way you edit with layers. Now, first things first, I want to choose my background. So I want a photo of like a guy in the woods, and I want the photo to be creepy. So we're under elements, and we're going to go to photos and go to see all, and then I'm just going to search man walking in the woods. And you can see here, there's a lot of different options. Now, these are all stock photos. Now, you can tell which ones are free if they just show up as a photo, or if they're paid because they'll have that little crown and say pro. So essentially, you can just go through and see what photos you like best. Like this one here is not so bad, but that's a woman walking in the woods. I wanted a man walking in the woods. And I also, let's filter up at the top to only show, I thought you could only show free images, but maybe they got rid of that because I don't see it anymore. But I want to create something that looks a little creepy. So this doesn't look outright creepy, but we're going to make it look creepy. So we're just going to expand that to take up the entire page. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go to the text panel, and we're going to add in a text box, and we're going to make it much bigger. And we'll just call the book Dark Path. And again, make it bigger. Do that. And we are going to just play around with the text until we feel like we like something. And as you can see, there's a lot of different text options. You can play with the sizing, the coloring. It's really just a matter of playing around with things until you feel like you like it. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. Okay, so we've got our text. Now the big issue here is the coloring of things. So I want to go ahead and make sure I have the image selected, and then I'm going to hit edit image. And we can see we've got a bunch of different filters and effects. I'm not going to mess around with that today. What I am going to do is hit the adjust button, and we're going to just play around with the coloring until I feel like I like it. Alright, so now we're getting a little bit closer to what I was looking for. I always have a hard time with the coloring of the text. Alright, now what I want to do is I want to give a drop shadow to this text here. So I'm going to make sure I have the text now selected and go to effects. And we're going to go to shadow. and just play around with that. Make sure we change our shadow color to black instead of yellow. That way the text just pops a little bit more. Now, if you want to do a more advanced editing to the photo, there is the option to do that. So again, you just make sure you're clicked on your photo and then hit edit image. And then you can see this Magic Studio options. There's a lot of different things. Like there is the option to select things like in Photoshop. There's the Magic Edit, Magic Eraser, Background Remover. This is the more stuff that you'd see in Photoshop that's in my opinion, easier to do using Photoshop. As you can see, most of it you have to pay to access it, and you can tell you have to pay because it has that little crown icon. That crown means it's a paid feature. And those are things that are a little bit easier to finagle in Photoshop, but is also possible to do in Canva. So they've made a lot of updates recently to make it easier to do these different things. So this is the very quick cover that we designed here in Canva. Obviously, there's a lot of different things that you can do to mess around with things a little more. I did want to bring you guys into a Photoshop book cover that I designed. Again, this is one of the book covers that we designed in the course, and I do a full step-by-step on showing how I designed this cover in the course. But I just wanted to show you guys the big differences here. So you can see here we have the text layers, like if we went over to in here, let me go back to elements. Let's see, where was it? I forgot how to view our layers. Let's just go back and go to layer and then show layers. Okay, so we have our different layers. You can see we have two different text layers. We have the image layer, and then we have the background layer itself. You can see the similarities here in Photoshop. What is different though is we have a lot of other different things going on. Like we have different clipping masks so if I turn this layer off here, it's a clipping mask that is applied to the title of the book. So if I turn this layer off, you can see all that did was it added this slight darkness to the text in very specific spots. I have this gradient layer that is set to a certain opacity. If we turn that off, we can see how the coloring of the book cover changes. We have all these different brightness levels and hue and saturation adjustments applied to one of our images. So you can see there's just a lot more going on in Photoshop than there is in Canva. But Canva is coming very close to being pretty similar with Photoshop. So you can make it work if this is all that you have, which is awesome. So the one other thing I wanted to show you guys that I'm not a fan of, but I will show because I feel obligated to show it since I am doing a tutorial, is they have different options for AI. So you can see right here we have this AI image generator. Again, I'm not a fan of it because it really puts me out of a job as a graphic designer, but I'll show you guys what I mean. So if we click on generate your own image and we do man walking in woods creepy, and we just hit enter, that'll probably create a better image than what the editing we did here. And again, this was very quick editing, so not my best work. I just wanted to make a quick example. But we can see some images that have been created by AI, and they are very much usable images. They are all in black and white, so I could change my text input to make the instructions a little more clear. But you can see how just using the AI option, you can get a really great image for your book cover, and then you just slap some text on and you're good. I tend to not be a fan of AI in general because I'm just not. I just made a YouTube video on how KDP allows you to use AI to narrate your audiobooks for your book now, which is cool and a free way to make an audiobook, but at the same time it puts audiobook narrators out of a job. So in the same way, this AI generator puts me out of a job because normally, like, this is an image I personally would produce as a graphic designer, where maybe I just have the woods and then I add in the person walking and then I change the lighting and all that to make it look good, whereas this AI image was just created. So I wanted to show you guys the tool. I'm not a fan of the tool, but I felt like I was obligated to tell you guys about its existence. I will say the biggest downside and the only reassurance that I have is that if you guys do choose to use AI generated images, you are required to inform KDP and therefore the customer that there is an AI generated image on the book cover. So you'll actually notice when you go to upload your book to KDP now, they ask if your book was created using any AI. And I do believe the cover, if it is AI generated, counts, even though it's not the interior of the book. So they are at least protecting, creators who are cover designers and narrators in that way, where when something is created using AI, you are required to let people know. So just be aware of that when you use AI generated images. The one last step that people can sometimes struggle to figure out is how to make the entire cover wrap. So that's the last and final step that I'll walk you guys through. And the first thing you have to do is you have to get the cover wrap template from KDP. So here we have the template creator from KDP. I will leave it linked down below, but you just put in all your information. So like paperback, we're going to do a black and white interior, cream paper, reading direction. If you're in the US, it's left to right. Basically, most books are read left to right. And then measurement units, I'm going to do inches. Trim size, I'm going to do 5x8. And then page count, I'm going to do 300. And then you just hit calculate dimensions. And then we're going to hit download template. So once you download the template, you want to make sure you extract the template. So this is the template we just downloaded from KDP. I'm going to right click and then hit extract all and then extract again. And then what I'm going to do is I just want to see how big this template is. So we can see here our template is 11 inches by 8.25 inches. So the way we create this template in Canva is we are going to go to create a design and then do custom size and then set our units to inches. So like we said earlier, our template is 11 inches by 8.25. So let me do that, 8.25, and then hit create new design. So now we have the proper canvas size. So from here, I'm going to go to uploads and then I'm going to upload a new file. And we just need to find that template we just downloaded, which is right here. And I'm going to hit open and we can see it pull up into Canva. And then I'm going to drag it into place and make sure that it fills all four corners and it fills it very nicely. Now, what we need to do from here is we need to create our guides. So to do that, we need to go to File, and then Settings, and then Add Guides. So when that happens, you see a bunch of guides come up. I'm gonna see if we can remove all these guides that were automatically added. And I'm just gonna set everything to 0. That way we have nothing on the screen. And now what I'm going to do is this works the same way as it does in Photoshop for creating guides, where you click the ruler and then you drag down your guide. And we're just going to put the guides wherever we see, the edges, we see the dotted lines. So you're just going to add all of those guides in. Alright, so there we have our different guides. Now that we have our guides set up, now we can go ahead and start pulling all the info in. So what I'm going to do is, let's say this is our book cover. We're going to export the book cover. So we're going to go to Share, Download, and we're going to actually download it as as a PNG. And normally I would make the size of the PNG bigger, but because I don't have the paid version, I can't do that. So I'm just going to do the default and download it. And now we go back to our wrap that we're trying to create, and we're going to upload the cover that we just designed in Canva, and we can see it pop up there. And we're going to click on it, and basically you're just going to put it where it's supposed to be on the template, which is right there. And then from there, you can design the rest of your wrap. So I'm going to do that super quickly. Alright, so here we have a quick and dirty version of a cover wrap. I just added some lips and lorem to the back cover description. I just wanted to be super quick with this. Obviously, you can get a lot fancier with how the spine looks, with how the back of the cover looks. But I also wanted to point out that you need to be mindful of your barcode. So if you want to make sure that you don't accidentally design something over your barcode, I'm just going to move this really quick. A cool trick that you can do is you can add in a shape right over where the barcode is supposed to be and make it take up about the same amount of space as your barcode. And then do all your designing. You have that as a filler, and then right before you export, just make sure you delete that filler for the barcode. That way you make sure you don't overlap things over where the barcode is going to be when you upload it to KDP. So that is all you have to do to design your cover wrap. It actually looks pretty good. I like the black and yellow look to it. And then all you have to do is export it. So you want to go to Share, and then Download, and then this is where you're going to definitely want it be PDF print, and then download it again. And that is your cover wrap, and then you have your cover. So that is how you design a cover in Canva. It can be a little finicky to find out where all the different things are. I highly suggest that you go in and you really start exploring things yourself, because I really just touched the surface. I feel like this tutorial, it's clear that I'm someone who prefers Photoshop because that's just the software that I'm used to. I'm used to where I can find things. I'm used to how things are done in Photoshop, but Canva is pretty cool and a great feature for those who do not want to pay for Photoshop. I do have another tutorial here on YouTube where I show how to make a cover wrap on Photoshop. So if you felt like I went through things too quickly, make sure to go and watch that YouTube video. Even though the tutorial is for Photoshop, I still give a lot of tips that would be relevant for Canva in terms of how to create your cover wrap and upload it to KDP. So again, make sure to check out that tutorial. It'll be linked down below. If you want to learn more about book cover design, I actually have a whole playlist here on YouTube all about book cover design where I show time lapses of me designing book covers, or I just talk about book cover design. So that playlist will also be linked down below. You can also take my book cover design course that I mentioned at the beginning of this video. You can either take the individual courses or purchase it as a course bundle. Otherwise, that is it for this video, and I'll see you all next week.